My doctor was calling me and he said, you have a tumor. And I said, make it a double, because breast cancer runs like a river in my family. He took 19 lymph nodes from my left armpit and 3 from my right. You think American Horror Story is scary? You should have been in that room with me. I was screaming, yelling, and then I heard this little social worker say, "Now just take a breath, take 2 deep breaths." And I was just like, I looked at her, "Get the out of here, lady," and I just left, because I thought none of these people understand what this is, what it means to me, why this is so devastating.
I remember seeing more in those clips of, she talks about that, the hysterics that she goes flying into.
Yeah, like operatic, like, no, like I've seen that behavior.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my grandma. I've seen it.
The Karen videos.
The Karen, yeah, like this emotional outbursting. I have seen it reoccurringly, and I like have a hard time processing with my functions.
Yeah.
I have a hard time like, okay, I wonder how they get away with doing that, I guess, is what I'm saying. I'm like, is that a normal thing? Because it feels like Effie is like, I care about the appropriateness of the emotional vibe in the room.
Yeah.
Why would that then happen? Or why would that would be okay? Or do they get away with that? Or like, what's the experience? And how does that end up playing out in their life?
I've had a lot of thoughts on FE because I've been processing that for quite a while. So kind of where I'm at now with FE is like, when you and I see FEs doing a bunch of weird, crazy ass shit, we're like, oh my God, if we could ever say that's a crazy type, it would be like that FE function. We're like, what
it's so different. I'm
right.
Like,
It's definitely the one that spooks us and triggers us.
Yes,
right?
I get triggered
but
by
when I really force the math of like, okay, so how is TE doing that? I start to see it.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, like when I talk to a lot of Savior FEs, I'm like, hey, don't you get embarrassed by all that like baby talk you do and XOXO and like playing silly music and all these happy faces? And like when I really talk to people Savior FE, they're like, oh yeah, I know it's dumb.
Right.
Like, oh yeah,
they do know.
And like, because when I talk to my friends that are Savior FE, they're like, I'm usually talking to their TI, which is great because it's like this badass motherfucker, especially if it's masculine.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh yeah, I know I'm doing all this flowery bullshit. That's not necessarily me. I'm like, okay, so why are you doing all this annoying church lady FE emotion shit if you yourself
are
aren't
embarrassed by it?
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's like us with dumbass TE. Like, we're like, this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea. And like, imagine a TI is like, oh, so you're tied to this idea? I'm like, what, that dumb idea? They're like, yeah, the one you just said was a great idea. No, I just said that was a great idea to make that idiot happy. I don't associate that idea with me.
That's so true.
And the TIs would be like, I'm confused. I thought you were backing the... Like, no. We're just throwing out stupid ideas to keep the tribe moving and keep them happy. But we're not tied to any one of these ideas, nor don't associate them with me. And so I think like with the FEs, they're like, oh yeah, I was very happy or very emotional or very sad or very aggressive. They're like, but that's not me.
Completely.
I was just doing that for the tribe. Like, okay, that is making so much more sense.
Because it's the extroverted function.
Yeah, so because you and I are like, oh, if you're being emotional, you're sharing your identity. No.
Right, and I'm like, whoa.
Because they're thinking, oh, you're sharing how you do things, you're sharing your identity. And we're like, no.
No, yeah.
So I think it's that.
Okay, that's really good. Let me let me do what you do. Let me blast back to you what you just said. Like, so I feel that when I'm doing the TE shit, I will ask dumb questions that I already know the answer to.
That.
All the time. Like, you can see how stupid I look on there all the time where I'm like saying stupid shit and I'm going along with stuff, I'll be like, right.
And that's FE
And I'm like
trying all this stupid flowery shit.
Agreeing with some of the stupid shit you say because I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that kind of makes... Because I'm like... I'm okay with like, yeah, that was not like I was wrong in the end or whatever. Like, I'm fine that eventually we made it to the truth. Right. So that would then interpret they're fine with looking erratic. Like, they're like, well, that's fine. That's not a part of my identity. I'm like, okay with looking like a crazy person.
That's like on the negative side of the spectrum. So if you and I are going into a bunch of ideas and it's like, this doesn't work. And
I'm okay with looking stupid.
I'm okay with grabbing a hammer and smashing the hell out of it and raging at the thing.
Yeah, sure.
And just destroying the thing. And be like, oh, well, I had a bad day with the thing.
Yeah, right.
I had a bad day with the TE. I burned it all down. I don't care. See it again tomorrow. So I think the FEs are like, yeah, I had a bad day with emotions. I fucking blew up. I burned the whole town down. Oh, well. That's on the spectrum too.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. Because what freaks me out when I see the hysterics, this is what I'm calling it, hysterics, when FE just explodes like that, I see it as like, but your reputation just got fucking wrecked. that you
Right.
are that emotionally out of control.
If you're FI.
That exactly.
Right.
And that's how I'm interpreting it. That's why I'm like, whoa. So that would tell me that what the FEs see us dumbass TEs doing is, why are you okay with looking that dumb?
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely see them saying that.
Right.
They're like, I'm like, oh, that was a dumb idea. They're like, no, David, you're not dumb. I'm like, I know I'm not dumb. I'm pretty kick-ass. They're like, okay, I just want you to know that you're not dumb and wrong.
Your ideas are valid.
You're respected. As I'm like, yeah, weirdo. My mom, you know. I think too that like one other thought I had was is like, you know how they love the god awful ding 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 music. Like everything, like you go walk around their house with their flowers and their holiday
Oh,
shit.
the holiday
ding,
shit.
Ding 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 ding, and they talk all nice and silly and stupid. Like
The amount of like holiday shit they put on the outside of the house, like sticks
Yeah.
with a flower and a face on it, and
Right.
then you're like, what?
right. So I think again, following this Dave rule of like, okay, so how does that make sense in TE land?
Okay.
So we rage at the
Good.
FEs of like, why do you have the dumbest, silliest, most childish, flowery shit that is
Yes.
super annoying? And I
Yes.
think what they're saying is they're like, I know, but that's the lowest common denominator that works for everyone.
Oh shit.
Because you and I rage at the motherfucking TIs that like build some device
Yes, completely.
that like is so overcomplicated. You have
that
to
no
be-
one can use it.
because we're like, look, the
Right.
best ideas are the simplest ones that
Yes.
work for everybody. That doesn't mean that's my personal idea, because we still have TI in the sense of like I'll still be like, this is my current favorite way to TI or T do
Sure,
something right now.
sure.
But I won't share that because I know that'll blow the socks off of everybody else.
Because it's too multi-layered.
It's too multi-layered.
Yeah, and you
And
know
I-
we can't. Like that's actually most of the stuff we're like, oh, I
Right.
can't talk about that because the amount of logic that I would have to build
Right.
with Dum Dum in the room, like I can't. Like I
Right.
can't
But-
help you deal with the amount of depth of logic.
Right,
there.
right. But we just like looking at the tripods over here. It's like we enjoy the ones that are simple enough that like if I
Right.
handed this to my mom and my friends, everybody could use it. That gives us the most enjoyment. Doesn't mean it's the best tripod.
Right, of course.
My
not.
best tripod might be this one over here, but it's so complicated. I don't want to share that with the tribe. So I think
Yeah.
the FEs are like, look, this may or may not be my favorite emotion or song or Christmas decoration,
Wow.
but it's my favorite in the sense of I know it works for everyone.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to press.
Right? I've been thinking about this for a while.
Because I like, and I know logically, I know my default wiring is like my functions are the best, even though like that's stupid.
Oh,
Obviously they're not.
I still think ours is the best.
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
say that. You can't.
Monkey functions. We got there first. FITE.
No, you can't
Beat that.
say that. Everyone believes that by default wiring.
My values.